2, 1?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to the 60th anniversary of Brisbane, and also our presentation of the artists, and also this wonderful mural that we've been working on for a few years now. My name is Amber, and this is Don, and we're both representatives of the Friends of Brisbane Library. Today, we're very fortunate to have with us two of the artists from Precita Eyes, Susan Cervantes and Julia Barziza. And there's also a third member who isn't with us today, but helped out significantly on this project, Deirdre Weinberg. There you go. So for the next maybe 20 or so minutes, we're going to do a question and answer so you guys can get to know a little bit about Precita Eyes, their history, the story of this mural here and how it kind of came to be. And then at the end we'll have some open question and answer for you as well if you want to stick around to that point, so you can also ask some questions of the artists. So it's a big privilege for us to have them here today, and it's been a long time in the making, so thank you all for joining us. Cool. So my first question here is for Susan. So Susan, if you guys don't know, she's been in the area in San Francisco for many, many years, and she started this organization called Precita Eyes, which for almost more than 50 years by now has been doing wonderful grand murals all around the city and the Bay Area. And so for us, we contacted her about maybe 2.5 years ago now about this project here as the library was being built. And so our first question is a little bit about how did Precita Eyes come to be? Tell us a little bit about the name, because I think it's near and dear to you in Bernal Heights. And what does Precita Eyes do?
Okay, well, Precita Eyes is,
if you could speak a little bit louder.
well, the Precita Eyes Muralists was founded in 1977, and it was around, just doing community collaboration. There was people who wanted to work on murals together, learn how to involve the community, and give them voice and ownership of the murals that they wanted to see done. So we've done everything by request. We've never initiated any projects. We're responsible for more than over 600 or more murals in the Bay Area and beyond. And so we start out with usually people calling and asking for a mural, and we set up a meeting where we can see the site and see what their expectations are and see what means they might have to be able to do it. And then we have a workshop. Once all that is done, then we have workshops. And those workshops involve and engage the community in the designing process. And that design process includes like theme development and drawing out ideas and bringing, all those things together into a composite that they've actually designed. So it's all community driven. And so I'd say about 80% of our work is like that. And that's what we're known for, and that's why people call us. Because they want to experience that. And a lot of the communities that we serve have never painted or drawn before. We also work with all ages. We work with lots of schools and other communities that are looking for this kind of outlet, for this kind of community building process. And so we're very, very fortunate to continue that practice, and we continue to practice that today, and to continue to be active. And so we really are honored to be invited to have this opportunity with the Brisbane Library, and congratulations to your anniversary and to the opening of your beautiful library, and for the mural that we now have created together. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, and that's a wonderful introduction to Precita Eyes. We're going to get a little bit more into the process, because I think what Susan was just talking about was really, really core to how we were able to go through that and collect many ideas, and also put together this under the pandemic last year in a lot of the work that Julia led. So actually I want to turn this over to Julia for a few seconds to just introduce yourself, like who are you, how did you come to join Precita Eyes, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how we put this together.
Hi, my name is Precita. I'm one of the lead artists for this mural project. I joined Precita Eyes. It's just about 2 years ago that I started volunteering. And the first project I started with was the Laguna Honda Hospital project under lead artists Elaine Chu and Yuka Izo. And this was in San Francisco. And kind of the big thing right now is that we just led another phase of that hospital project. So that's a weird event.
And that's a large wall, like pretty large.
Yeah, and so it's kind of fun to have it come back full circle where it's like going there as a volunteer and just helping out, and then to come back now and be one of the artists that's helping with the community and designing the mural together. So it's just a really cool process.
Fantastic. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the timeline and the process, because I think this is really important to understand and also to put this in context. So I believe this is actually roughly the 1 year anniversary of when you actually started to do your work on this wall. But about 1.5 years ago, this is in the middle of the pandemic, we actually had this idea about, well, how do we actually run Precita Eyes' process, which is the community-driven design, when we weren't even allowed to meet? And so, with the advent of Zoom and everybody being comfortable with using that tool, I think we kind of pioneered with you one of the first community design experiences, reluctantly, but also successfully, of doing a Zoom-based community design. And so I believe in June of 2020, we picked 12 representatives from all across the community. Some of them from school all the way through, other artists in town, and I think we covered at least 6 different groups here in town, and we brought them together. And so my question for that was, how did you feel trying out something experimental with a process that you were very familiar with before, and either for Susan or
It was the first time we've ever done that. We've never done a community virtual mural design process. It was completely brand new, and I think what we learned from the pandemic is a lot of people were kind of bootstrapping solutions to create that same community feeling. Oh yeah.
Just give it to her. Let's take out the mic and.
Oh, okay. Now you're going pro.
Can you guys hear in the back?
Now it's better. Can you all hear it better? Yeah, it's better. So that was the fun thing about the pandemic, if there is a fun thing about the pandemic, is that there were these opportunities to try something completely new that we haven't done before. And so this community mural design process that Susan pioneered and has done for many, many years, for the first time ever, went into the virtual space on Zoom. And we found the Friends of Brisbane Library to be very open to that process and willing to troubleshoot it with us and figure it out and try it together, because there was so much thought and planning that had gone into the mural and the library to begin with that we wanted to make sure we got it right. And so both Dawn and Amber were a huge part of facilitating the conversation with the community and the community members. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without that partnership. So we were pretty pleased to be able to try that out with you all. And it seemingly went well. It sounded like there was like a lot of energy in the room, and it's different perceiving the room energy in Zoom versus in person. But it was definitely a fun, adventurous experience for all of us, I think.
So I just wanted to say that it was interesting to to experience the virtual process. It was a little bit strange, but I also know that it was really great to get the technical support from Amber and his team, particularly Amber, because we really didn't know how it was going to work. And to have that connection that he had the technology, and we also did a trial run before we did the bigger invite to the community to participate. We did a trial workshop just to see how the technology worked and all that. And I thought that was very, very supportive and very insightful. We got a lot of good ideas on what direction to go with it, I think, because of that. So thank you.
And so just to give you an idea of what that actually looked like, in their process, there's two pieces of it. There's the first where we generate themes. And so this is just writing down different images and ideas that come to mind as we were thinking about Brisbane, thinking about a new library. And so that ended up with a whole list of maybe 30 or 40 different words and phrases. Part two of that, and which was the challenge because some people are a little bit shy about drawing and putting it out there, was to turn those words into pictures. And so it was a little bit of like, maybe 5 minutes of drawing, and some people were really amazing at that, in fact. Some people were very simple, but the key part of that was to get their ideas out, share it, no judgment, and have Julia then turn it into kind of a Pictionary exercise where she actually put all of them together in a composite where everybody was represented with their idea and their image, and just to start to get a feel of the layout of what this might look like. And so at the end of that, maybe 2 hours, at the end of the 2 hours, we had a very, very rough black and white sketch of what came to be, which is hard to tell what it is now because it has evolved a lot from there. But I think everybody felt like they were heard and they got to participate. And I think that was the real key theme of this community design process, whether it was virtual or in person. So I want to move on to a little bit more about our piece here. And so the name of our piece is Nested Together, We Flourish. And so behind me we have a little narrative of the descriptions of many of the imagery pieces that are inside this piece of artwork. And there's way more than I could ever sit here and list, which is what is amazing about it, because you can come back here over and over and over and pick at little pieces over time. And so I think one question I was really curious about was the research process, right? Because Julia had to cover plenty of things, from animals to plant life to the stories of Brisbane, the 60-year history, all this kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit about your research process and how did you put your head around all of that?
Yeah. So a lot of, as Amber said, all of the images in the mural came from contributions from by the community, which then of course led to this question of how do you research all these things and what makes Lupin look like Lupin and all of these things. So Deirdre and Deirdre was a huge part of helping me install the work, and she's out of town this weekend. Sorry to miss it. But she and I took a little hike and we walked around town and we looked at all the neighborhoods and looked at all the houses, and there's a few different ways to go about creative expression, right? There's one where you just capture it exactly as it is, and then there's another one where you kind of catch the spirit of it. And so wandering around Brisbane, what we found was this really sweet hometowny kind of feeling, where it's everybody felt connected to each other, and the houses had this really charming feel to them, and it was lovely in that way, And so that was the fun research. And then there was other research too, where it was just reading through any historic texts available on the history of Brisbane, getting a sense for those photographs that have been archived. And the Global team, again, was a huge part of providing research to look at also in that, because it was COVID and we couldn't meet physically with a lot of different people, the Global team was huge in providing photographs and community events that happened over the years. And that is a huge part of what the research was behind creating a lot of the people in the mural, is that we wanted it to be people that were in Brisbane, people of Brisbane. So it was kind of a mix and match with a lot of different things, but we tried to cover them all between texts and image research and then just first-hand experience.
Cool. And so I just want to read the beginning of the narrative which Julia prepared for us, because I think she starts to talk about some of the imagery, and love you guys to eventually come over here, read through it, and try to pick some of those things out on your own. And so it starts like this. A large book opens to a page depicting the Olon people. The book represents the history of Brisbane and its everlasting stories. Binary code spills from the pages representing the present and future. It spells the city's date of incorporation, November 27th, 1961. And so she goes on to kind of describe many of the other images in the picture in that format. And so let's just talk about that imagery for a second. So the book, the Olon, the binary code, and the dates. And I want you to kind of talk us through that process and the formation of those images in the piece.
Oh yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, because we had two virtual workshops. One was kind of a test run, and I think during that test run we might have had a Brisbane librarian join us.
Dolores Gomez.
Dolores.
Yeah.
Yes. Blake.
Yeah, that's okay.
But she couldn't make the second workshop.
That's right.
And so we took notes of a lot of the dates that she shared with us, including the date of the city's incorporation. A lot of the dates on the banners, all of them actually have to do with big moments of when the library had transferred physical locations. I think one being from like the back of the drugstore or something like that to, at some point it might have been in somebody's home, I think, if I remember
It was in
correctly.
her home, yes.
Yeah.
She was an integral part to providing us with all this information. So.
Yeah, she was a huge part of that research part, so I'm so glad that we have her do that. But yeah, that's where a lot of the dates come from. And then the binary code, I think, might have been a contribution by Amber, talking about the technological advancements that kind of happen every day throughout the Bay Area here, and how do we capture that over the course of time. And so I think marrying together those two things, the binary code and the date of where it all started for Brisbane, seems like a good harmony between those two important features of the city.
And so there's a lot more of those types of stories in here. I'll challenge you all to go and try to imagine them yourselves by reading the piece here and taking a look yourself. So let's talk a little bit about the mural making process, because if you haven't seen that or seen the little bits and pieces of that, it's really intriguing because, number one, the way you guys scale a small kind of prototype into, this is not a big mural by any long shot, it's big for us. We've done things that are side of buildings and maybe 10 times the size I imagine. And so in this piece we have not only the acrylic painting but also some bits and pieces of mosaic, which they're very famous for as well. So maybe you can take us through a little bit about how do you actually turn your concept into the actual finished piece of artwork, and then also a little bit about the acrylic painting versus the mosaic. What are the steps?
So the steps are, well, I think for me, the main one that comes to mind is color. Because thinking about, when we think about the tile, it's, when we paint, we can mix the colors as we go. When we have the tile, we have to define the colors ahead of time and know what we're going to work with. And so when we're talking about making images come to life in the form of color, or I'm sorry, in the form of mosaic, color is like a huge factor that comes to mind. Like even looking at this hand over here, that's something that we had done a couple times over, just trying to get the color right. Like how do you, what looks like a hand? Like what are the shadows on the hand? And like at what point does this finger look like a hot dog? And like how do you like avoid that? You know, like stuff like that. Because we had some funny looking hands at some point. But what happens is we can either break the mosaic and set it down, and all of this was made inside of our studio at 24th Street Commission. Precita as Muralists Visitor Center. And so we had all of our material there. We had long sheets of netting where we drew out the true-to-life versions of this artwork. And then we hand-cut these tiles and set them with glue onto the netting. And it was cool because it was winterish around that time, so we were able to do it inside of the studio and keep it dry. But it was also great because we could be more thoughtful about the cuts we were making. So when you look at like the flowers, you might see a little bit more flow in the flowers than you would if you just break and set it. So that was part of it. And then where we used a tile adhesive called Precita and attached it to the wall. Let that dry and let it cure for a little bit, and then came back and did a grout around the edges of the grout. And so the processes are pretty different between mosaic and painting. Mosaic is a lot more like hands-on. It's physically different on the body. And Susan's done a whole bunch of mural projects, ranging from climbing scaffold to being on a swing stage scaffold, which are, they're physically challenging in different ways. Mosaic, it's like a lot of fine use of tools and things like that. So it's just a very different medium, I think. I don't know. Do you think of any similarities between mosaic and painting?
Well, I think that mosaic is, what I like about mosaic is its permanence, the difference is that they don't make tile with a lot of bright colors. So you are challenged when you're trying to do any kind of a painting-like kind of quality with mosaic. It's very, very difficult because there's not the gradations that you can do with the paint. But also the painting on this mural was all done before the mosaic was applied. So people need to understand that too, that they were, Deirdre and Julia were transferring the design and painting in all the painted images first. And, that's a little bit more familiar with us as painters. But the community wanted to also have some mosaic. And we love doing half and half. We've done that on schools and other places where we've done both. But there are very different material. And like I say, we don't have all the different colors that we love to paint. So we're, like Julia was expressing the challenge with just the hand, just the colors in the hand to get it right. And if you only have 3 browns, you don't have you don't have like you don't have like 6 or 12, that you would have if you were painting it. So and also you're doing it with broken pieces or custom cut pieces. And so it's a different kind of mindset. And, I think it just comes out very beautifully. I like the texture and the change, the difference in medium. I think it gives it more dimension and depth, and really happy to do those kinds of processes with you.
Not only was that all challenging and true, they were out here in the middle of construction, lots of things coming forward and back. It was chaotic at most times, and they stuck through it like the floors weren't in. It was a lot going on. So on top of your hard job already, you had to work in the confines of the construction that was going on. So we're so forever thankful for that.
Every time we saw you though, Don, you brought like such a balm to it because you like experienced that because like you were on a pilot experience too, where it's just like you just definitely felt the need. So that
Yes.
was like you were definitely part of that too.
And that's definitely something to say. It was a long and slow process because we were right before winter time, and I think I didn't realize this at the time, but obviously the weather does affect a lot about how you do your acrylic work and where you stop and cover and come back the next season. And so I remember we were fighting the construction schedule, which was kind of a moving target, but also trying to complete as much as you could, and then getting the momentum back on the other side of the holidays and January and then the weather. And so I think it did take us about 5 to 6 months to get to the end of it, but it was definitely worth it, every single piece of it.
The police even came at one point, right?
Oh, yeah,
The police thought they were breaking in,
Yeah.
doing graffiti.
Yeah.
Kind of, right?
Boy, were they
They
wrong.
were so surprised. They're like, "How long have you been here?"
And I think it was important too to say the scale of where it was supposed to be, and now where it's at now, right? So it was supposed to be smaller.
Sure, I think we pushed a few buttons around town in terms of how small it was supposed to be. but I think the scale that it turned out to be in the kind of aspect ratio on this piece here definitely warranted as much space as we got. So very, very happy about that. So I think we're getting close to an end of our 30 minutes. I have one question about some of the people here who might be aspirational in terms of pursuing their own artwork or learning how to do some type of art. And so what would you say to those individuals, young and old, who maybe never really thought about giving it a shot? Where might they start? How do they kind of get over the hump of, I'm okay, I'm good enough, I can give this a shot, and what would you tell them?
Well, I would tell people that there's an artist inside of everyone, and that you have the creator. You are the creator. It's already there, and you just have to do it. If you feel inclined to do any painting or drawing, just start. No matter, and just sort of accept whatever it is that comes out. And if you want to go further, just be around other people that are doing it. Go take a class or do something so that you'll be around and be inspired by what other people are doing and sharing ideas and thoughts. But you can do it. Everyone can be an artist, and if everyone was an artist, there would certainly be a lot different world.
Yeah, I love all of that. Like, particularly, like, finding your people is a huge part of it. Like, if you can find another artist who's doing something, it doesn't have to be the whole body of work, but something that you really enjoy. Finding them and hanging out with them is a huge part of that. And I think, for me, as somebody that's still, like, a learning artist, is, like, recognizing that learning everything can lead to your art. Like, everything that you're doing, like, don't quit your day job. Like, you're, like, making this cup of coffee is somehow related to your art too, and just like recognizing that it's a journey and there's always a new step along the way.
Great with that, and also I think the weather might be changing on us. Let's just give a wonderful round of applause for Precita Eyes and their artwork. And so I think they'll stick around a little bit for if you want to do some Q&A, we can get a little bit closer or out of the rain. And so we'll just be casual from now on, and go ahead and introduce yourselves to them and just have a chat. So thank you.
Is there any way that, are you guys on social media, if people want to follow your work, because you do amazing work. I've been a fan since I grew up in the mission, so I'm with it. So can you share ways that people can follow you and support Precita Eyes?
Yeah. We are most active on Facebook, so you can find us at Precita Eyes Muralists on Facebook. We also do have an Instagram account where we post things from time to time. Right now, it's been mainly updates about our store reopening